Hi, my name is Tom Callens, and today I'm going to introduce the new Selligent version 6 to you. First of all, let's have a look at the new Selligent portal. This online portal is the entry point for all users of any Selligent module. So let's log in first. Here we are. After the login, we end on the homepage of this portal, or actually your own personalized dashboard. And on top of this page, you will find the recently launched journey maps. For each journey map or recently launched journey map, you can see the target group, the ROI, the click-through rate, and the date of execution. You can also look into the reporting of this journey map by clicking on the small graph icon over here, or you can open it by clicking on the small pencil. Below, you can find the pinned items or your pinned items. So you can now pin your preferred or your favorite items and quick access them from over here. On the right hand side of your screen, you can now find a newsfeed. So here you can post some comments to your colleagues, for example, or Selligent can also push notifications over here. Finally, also Selligent campaign can place notifications over here, for example, when a campaign has been executed. The main navigation menu can be found on the left-hand side of your screen. So first of all, your homepage or your personalized dashboard. Secondly, your pinned items. So when you're using a lot of pinned items, you can consult them over here and quick access them from here. The third icon, you can use that one to access the reporting or actually the old Selligent portal. No functional changes over here. However, we completely reskinned it with the new styling, so the same as the Selligent portal and Selligent campaign. However, in the backend, we replaced the reporting cubes with InfoBright technology to improve the performance. So no functional changes, but in the backend, we replaced the reporting cubes. The fourth icon will give you an overview of all the Selligent modules with a small explanation. The used modules are colored in blue. The unused are colored in gray with a small explanation and a link for a more in-depth details about this module or those modules. Also, we now offer an online help to assist you. You can access it by clicking over here. For example, in this case, you can see the used items colored in blue, the unused items colored in gray with a small link, a small description and a link. Okay, let's go back to the portal. In the bottom left corner, over here, you can launch the different modules. The first one is the new Selligent campaign module, and this campaign is actually grouping the former designer, the manager, the campaigner, express, and EFO modules into one single module, Selligent campaign. All modules are now web-based, like CI and Target, for example, except Selligent campaign. However, you can launch this campaign module from within several browsers like Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, and so on. So now let's open Selligent campaign. Let's launch it. When we open Selligent campaign, we end up on the same homepage or personalized dashboard as in the Selligent portal. So when you're working in Selligent campaign, you don't need to switch back to your portal page to access your personalized dashboard. So same things over here, recently launched journey maps, your pinned items, and the newsfeed. The main navigation can again be found at the left hand side of your screen. So first of all, the homepage or your personalized dashboard, the journey maps, the former campaigner, the editor, the former designer, Express, that's just Express, eForm, planning and cadence or communication cadence, that's the planning and the former marketing pressure, the audiences, the former manager, the processes, this holds all SQL tasks, the exports, and so on, and the configuration tabs. Okay, so let's have a look at our journey maps. Also on the left-hand side, you can find a tree interface over here. So here you can consult your journey maps or your Selligent assets like emails, pages, and so on, your audiences or your lists, and your interfaces, for example. Again, here you can browse within the directories and look for your journey map or your assets, for example, but you can also access your pinned items over here. So that's very easy to work with. And in addition to that, we also now offer a quick search menu. So when you're looking for a journey map, for example, you can, and you know the name by heart, you can just type in the name and open that journey map. So let's open the newsletter journey map over here. Okay. So now we opened the newsletter registration. So on top, we now work with a tab interface. So you can open several or multiple journey maps at the same time. So you can go from one journey map to the other by clicking on the different tabs. Same thing for emails, web pages, and so on. You can also create a new journey map or page or email by clicking on the plus over here. Below that, we can now find a context-sensitive toolbar. So it will only show the icons which you are allowed to use at this moment. And also we replaced our locking mechanism with a read, edit, and test mechanism over here. So when we look at this journey map, we can see a lot of different colors over here. So how does it work? We still have the canvas in the middle, no changes over there. We still have our component library with the predefined components available on the right-hand side of the screen. However, we now group our components by functionality and we gave it a different color. So the interaction components like the email, the pages, the eForm, social public, and the prints are now colored in blue. The audience components, so the list, the report, the checkpoints are some kind of orange. Data components in red, store procedure, lookup, data component, viral components, and so on. The optimization components and the select components like A/B testing, control groups, top, the waves are now colored in green. Input and output component, yellow. Web services, SOAP web services, HTTP service, the CRM corrector, the former symlink, in this case are colored in gray, BPM components in purple, and MRM in orange. So this will give you a clear overview on what is happening in your journey map. For example, here we can see all data components, all our channel or our interaction components. So it offers a lot of clarity on your journey maps. Also on the right hand side, you can find the properties section of your journey map. So you can select the product or category, the scheduling, so single shot, data driven trigger. No changes over here, but restyled within the new styling. Advanced configurations, and also if you want to use these campaigns or these journey maps within the target solution, you can configure that over here. So let's create a new journey map. You can do it, for example, by clicking on the plus, create new journey map. You can select a folder where you want to store that journey map. I'm going to do it over here. We give it a name and we create a new journey map. So like before, we start with an empty journey map. We need to select our audience. So we go back to our tree structure over here, the audiences. We can browse within those folders, or we can access the pinned items. I am going to do that. Again, you can work in move mode or in connect mode. So you can move it or you can connect the components over here. You can also switch between move and connect mode by right clicking on your mouse. So let's look for an email. The weekly email, for example. I have to select the email, of course, not the journey map. Connect it. It still works the same. You can use the predefined components, connect them over here. When you click on those components, the property wizard will open. Same wizards as before, just restyled. Okay, so I'm going to remove that link. For example, when we save it over here, we can see the save is successful. However, at the bottom of the page, we can see all errors are highlighted in red. So that's very clear right now. I'm going to create that link. Okay, save it again. So no more errors. So when our campaign is finished, we can now also test it, of course. So we select the email. We go to test. We can test our email. We can test it on a desktop, we can test it on a tablet, on mobile phone, and we can also change the resolution for testing. Same for tablet. You can do it in landscape mode or in portrait mode. You can test it in several modes. Also on mobile, several resolutions, landscape, portrait mode. So you can see this is a responsive design over here. The email analysis for Litmus integration. So we improved our Litmus integration, and we now also offer a preview of the subject lines, for example. You can still send test mails, of course. Click on the send test mail section, select the person, and send those test mails. So no functional changes, but a complete restyle, of course. Okay, so we can go back to the edit mode. As you can see over here, we can switch between several different journey maps, and we can do that same for web pages and emails. That's easy to work with. So now when we want to switch to an email, for example, we can do it by going to the editor module, or we can do it directly from within a journey map. Just open the email and we switch to the editor module. So same thing here, tree structure, web folders for the images and the script, the audiences and the journey maps and with assets. On the right hand side, you have your components available to create your email, the sensors and the properties of your email. So what changed? On top of your email, you can now see the configurations like the domain, the mail from, the mail to, the reply, the subject line, and we now also offer pre-header configuration. You can personalize that just in the same way as before, like the other fields over here. You can also collapse this to save some space if you want. So let's have a look. We now use a completely new source editor. So it now holds line numbers over here. It's very useful. You can also collapse code now. Also, we added some coloring and, for example, also a search mode. So div, they are highlighted in yellow, for example. Very handy. back to the what you see is what you get editor. Also here we completely change the what you see is what you get editor. So if you hover over all the items, I have to edit it, of course. When you hover over those items, you can see those items. To delete it, to move it, or to edit all those items like images, like tables, like containers, and so on. You can see it over here. What happens? Also, all dynamic containers are now highlighted with an orange box around it. Okay, and you can see that they have an additional icon over here. It's either colored in blue or colored in white. When it's colored in blue, it means there is some kind of constraint on it. For example, for the show web version of an email, the constraint, you can open the constraint from over here. Also, the dynamic articles or the dynamic content, they are now added with a name. Like, for example, you can identify which article you're using, the hero match, for example, and also the EMMA item, the EMMA section, the EMMA no match is listed over here for better visibility. Another important thing is that the sections are now included within the emails and the pages. So for example, the sections for multiple language support within the email are now included within the emails. So here you have an article without a filter available. So let's click on it. So when you click on it, you can open the new constraint editor. We have a basic constraint editor and an advanced constraint editor. So the advanced is still the same as before. So you can use all the fields that are available over here. You can use the operators over here, and you can use the function over here. When you hover over those functions, we added a small explanation on how you can use those functions. So let's have a look at the new basic editor. So you can match a few rules, any, at least one, or none. So that's and, or none. You can, for example, gender. Add it. So we validate the rule. So you cannot make any mistakes. For example, if you're doing something like this, it will be highlighted in red and you cannot edit. So you cannot make any mistakes over here. City is not empty, for example, and you can configure your own constraint over here. Also, we improved our drag and drop functionality. For example, you can add personalization from your audiences, just import it over here, or you can drag and drop an image, for example, just drag it on the screen. Then you need to configure that and it's done. Also, for an email, for example, we have share and follow social media integration. For web pages, we offer more social media integrations. So, for example, share, you can select between the different social media. I'm going to do a Facebook share. Just drag and drop it onto the screen, configure it, and everything is done. Okay. Sensors at the right hand side of your screen, the properties of your email also on the right hand side of your screen, and the text version, of course. So this is the editor. So a complete new source editor and a complete new what you see is what you get editor is available. Let's have a look at the other modules. Express. No functional changes over there, except we are now using the same editor as within the editor itself. Further, there are no changes. So let's edit it. You can still see the add new, the add existing. So if you click on add new on the right hand side, you will see the properties which you have to fill in to add it. Add existing, same wizard wizards as before, just add some articles. Okay, that's done. So no functional changes, just again a new complete restyling. Let's go to eForms. Again, over there, no functional changes. Just a new reskin. Planning and communications cadence. So the planning, marketing pressure, or communication cadence as we call it now. The lists. So for example, I'm going to open the Piranha context within my pinned items. So no changes over here, except we added a homepage for every audience list or every list. We added some tiles to give you insights on the number of contacts, the number of segments, linked lists, number of columns, and so on. You can navigate at the bottom of the page, the design, the data, the segments, exports, the relationships, and so on. And you can do actually the same by using the tiles over here. So if you want to go directly to the segments, you can do the same as clicking at the bottom of this page. So the tasks, the SQL tasks, the exports, the interfaces are now listed in this tab. No functional changes, just a reskin. Everything remains the same. And at the bottom left corner, we can still do the configuration. So again, a new reskin, new tiles, but the same wizards as before. For example, in this case, when we want to add a user. So actually, this is it. I hope it was beneficial, and thank you for joining. Hope to see you next time. Thank you.